Business Matters. The title suggests many things. The important issue is the world revolves around business, society, organizations, individuals, and even religion survives and thrives because of business. Business has to encompass not just financial commodity and service transactions. It has also to include welfare, justice, empowerment, environmental, and other issues too. Every week, Business Matters will delve into aspects of business that impact our lives. We will seek out extraordinary and ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. Facilitators, educators, and entrepreneurs will be invited to inspire and enlighten our listeners. Join Anwar Mullah for an interactive show and find out what really matters in business.
نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar. If you've just joined us, we are it's 8:46 on a Tuesday evening, the 7th of December, and yes, we have a exciting guest in the studio with us, a person that I've dragged into the studio. He was in Durban today for a meeting, and I convinced him to join us. I'll introduce him to you just now, but first and foremost, let me say Assalamu alaikum to my fellow presenter, Imran Mullah. Imran, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, and lovely to be back.
Yes. Close to the silly season, close to the holiday period. I'm sure everybody looking forward to that, but we've got a few more shows to go before that does happen. And our guest in the studio tonight is a person that's well known in investment circles. He's the managing director of Hasanat Investments, and he's going to be talking to us on alternative investments and their place in a person's portfolio. And he is none other than Suhail Mohamad. Suhail, formerly the investment manager for the Stanlib Islamic Equity Fund, as well as the Stanlib Islamic Balance Fund, and at present residing in Pretoria, and the head or the managing director of Hasanat Investments. Suhail, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Radio Al Ansar.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah khairan for having me.
Suhail, we were with you for most of today. We had a lovely function where we had the AGM for Hasanat Investments, and I thought this an opportune time to get you into the studio to speak about alternative investments and what is on offer out there in the form of alternative investments. I have known you for a long time, Suhail, going back to the time when I think the Stanlib Islamic Equity Fund was launched, and you were down in Durban for launch, and we met on a few occasions thereafter. So tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your early life and how you've got to where you are today.
Okay, so how far back do you want me to go? All right, so I'll skip my childhood. I won't bore you guys with their details. So yeah, alhamdulillah, my education, I have a BCom degree in in investment management and business finance from WITS. I've got an honors degree in financial management, as well as a master's degree in Islamic finance.
Alhamdulillah.
As far as my work experience is concerned, I started working in 2004 in the Islamic finance industry. I've spent most of my career in this particular space, working in asset management, banking, alternate finance. And in 2017 is when I decided to go on my own, or not on my own, to partner with a few other individuals.
To leave the corporate world.
To leave the corporate world, yeah. To leave the corporate rat race. And yeah, that's where I find myself today. That's where the idea of Hasanat was born.
Alhamdulillah. Suhail, let's talk about the general investments that people would do, and obviously the equities and things like that would be part of a portfolio. Normally we talk about cash, property, equity, and tonight we're talking about something that's quite different, and we talk about alternative investments. So in a nutshell, where do alternative investments fall into a person's portfolio?
Yeah, so I think what we hear of on a regular basis is the difference, the two different economies. You get your financial economy, and you get what you would call your real economy. So your financial economy would refer to, your banks, your asset managers, your listed stocks and things like that. More your in terms of your conventional, and Sharia compliant. When I say conventional, I'm referring to your banks and your asset managers, etc. That is one avenue in which to invest your funds. And I think that's the avenue that most people are quite familiar with. When it comes to and remember, so let's take an example of an equity unit trust. You investing in a company, whether it's an MTN or a Cecil or any of these companies, you investing in these companies and relying on the management of those companies to deliver results. But also what happens is, because these are listed companies, a lot of times sentiment actually drives your returns on that company. So, as an example, a typical example is that MTN is a telecoms company based or with head office in South Africa and operations around the world.
Yes.
And at that point, the oil price went from $120 to $60 a barrel within the space of a few weeks. And MTN share price was affected by that. So MTN was the same company doing exactly what they were doing, but because of Nigeria's reliance on oil as an export, investors felt that because MTN has a big presence in Nigeria, that MTN is no longer as strong as it was. So generally, that's what tends to happen with your listed stocks. The alternate space, and alternate space is effectively investing into any business. Businesses that you and I see and interact with on a regular basis. It could be a property investment. It could be a franchise outlet where a few investors get together and put money into that. But the investment that Hassanat Investment Managers focuses on predominantly is an agriculture investment with a company called Al Mabrur. We have spoken about Al Mabrur on this program before. And, I'd like to delve a bit more into that, not to market the company or anything of the sort, but that's a business I'm familiar with and, which I could provide a lot more information on.
So before we get directly into Al Mabrur, just a little bit more generally around alternate investments. We hear the term private equity a lot. Mm-hmm. How does that fit into the alternate investment space?
Private equity, yes. Alternate investment, most or generally the FSCA would have a specific category for private equity investments. So you would have your FSCA registered private equity firms, but also you'd have your smaller private equity firms. And going back to the example of your franchise outlet, that would be considered private equity as well, when a group of individuals get together and put their funds together to form a business or some sort of a business relationship. So, Imran, just to add to that, generally people hear the term private equity and the first word that goes through their mind is, this is high risk.
Absolutely.
And this is not always the case. With private equity, you've got different categories of investments as well. Like with a unit trust, you would have your property, your fixed income, your equity, your offshore. When it comes to private equity, you have different types of investments as well. The one that most people think about is what they call, angel investors, where it's somebody who has this brilliant idea, no track record, no capital, and generally in today's times, it's your mobile apps or computer programs or something like this. And yes, those are your extreme high risk, high reward kind of investments. We've seen people, make 100 times what they put in when some of these apps are successful. But, with those kind of investments, you could lose every cent that you put into that.
Yeah, if the investment goes nowhere and the company that you're investing in does not take off,
correct,
then your seed capital doesn't go anywhere.
Yes, exactly. But, like that, you get investments along the curve in terms of risk. If you're opening, as an example, the agriculture business, it's a stable market with a stable, supplier base. Customers are there. So to get into something like that would be a lot less risky than developing a new mobile app. Property investments as well is something that's quite common in the private equity space. So there's various types of private equity investments out there.
So don't be alarmed when you hear the term private equity. It's not always a high risk game, and it is available to people. Previously, the term private equity or investments into alternate investments came at a high price. Is that true, or have these barriers been broken down?
So yes, they did come at a high price. But remember one thing to always bear in mind, that a private equity firm, when they come to investors with a product, that's a result of months of due diligence and investigations into the product, into the company and things like that. So unlike, a listed company where information is freely available, the information that private equity firms need to get from new businesses is often a lot more. And once again, there it's, I wouldn't say it's a myth or anything like that, because yes, there are private equity firms that charge ridiculous amounts of money. But in the same way, I mean, like you would have your asset managers, some of them would charge a fixed annual administration or management fee. Some would charge a profit share. Some would different ways of investing. But yes, I think an important thing for any investor when approaching a private equity investment is, number one, what due diligence has the manager done? How much information do they have available before they offer this to you? And number two is to understand the fees or the profit share that the manager would charge.
Okay. Suhail, we're going to have to stop in a little while for the 9 o'clock news. But before that, and we'll delve after that into Hasanat and Al Mabrur in detail. But before that, property syndications. I mean, there's been a lot of people that either individually have got groups of people together to do propertications, or larger groups. But with COVID and now post-COVID, unfortunately, and also with the rioting that has taken place, rioting in Durban, property seems to be a little bit out of favor at the moment. Your take on property syndications and just property in general?
So what we found was that there are certain sectors of certain property sectors that it were badly affected. I mean, obviously, we all saw retail take a hiding, COVID and then into the rioting. Certain areas in terms of residential, sometimes because the area fell out of favor with residents. Other times, for various other reasons, there could be an oversupply in the market. So a decision that we made a few years back was that we looked at the economy, and my personal way of looking at it was that at that point I was doing a big percentage of my shopping was done online.
Right.
So whether it was clothing or technology or things, that a lot of that was done online. And I always felt, and myself and the rest of the Hasana team, we looked at it and said that the future of retail is not going to be a shopping mall. This was something that was just sped up by COVID. So we didn't have the option. Many of us didn't have the option during COVID. And then, I think when we got to level 4, a lot of the shops still needed to stay closed, but online retailers were allowed to open. And a lot of people then noticed that the convenience of online shopping. And we've seen, firstly, unfortunately, a lot of small businesses have gone out of business. And your anchor tenants in shopping malls and, your strip malls and things, that have renegotiated leases. And in a lot of cases, I mean, you've got a store of a few thousand square meters. The landlord had no option but to give in to the anchor tenant. So yes, we have seen the retail space taken a particular knock. But then on the flip side, we're seeing, medical properties. Medical properties are doing exceptionally well. And, as was the case with COVID, we saw it, I mean, people needed hospitals. They needed doctors and things there. So medical facilities, we're still seeing a lot of value in terms of property. And another sector that we're seeing some good value in is student housing. So, a lot of your student housing owners, NSFAS had signed a contract with them. And through COVID, NSFAS actually honored those contracts, because a lot of times you had students from rural areas that needed to be close to the university. They had online classes. They may not have had access to the internet or proper computers and things like that at home. So a lot of those students stayed in residence, and that's the two sectors that we found. There may be other sectors, but those are the two sectors that we found have been quite stable over the past few years, and for the foreseeable future, we don't see that changing.
I'm sure the other factor that has affected the returns on some of the commercial properties as well as residential to an effect is the high rates. A lot of the areas have found that rates have gone up disproportionately to income, and that has affected return. And also maintenance costs have increased tremendously.
Yes, so it's a number of factors. And yes, the maintenance, the rates, a lot of those. And also, with COVID, a lot of people lost jobs or their income was depleted. And, it just wasn't possible for those people to keep up with their rental payments any longer.
Okay, so if you've just joined us, you're on the Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar. We've been having an interesting discussion with Suhail Mohamad, the MD of Hasanat Investment Managers, on alternative investments. And inshallah, we'll explore after the 9 o'clock news more fully what Suhail and his team at Hasanat Investment Managers can offer in the way of alternative investments. The number in the studio is 0861904904, and the WhatsApp number 0609041056 if you want to ask any questions to Suhail Mohamad, our guest in the studio this evening. And inshallah, we'll be back with you after the 9 o'clock news.
Business Matters.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. If you've just joined us, it's gone 10 past 9 on Tuesday evening. It's the Business Matters program on Radio Al Ansar. And before we went for that news break, we were talking to Suhail Mohamad, the MD of Hasanat Investment Managers, on alternative investments. Suhail is here with us in the studio tonight. We're down in Durban for the AGM of Hasanat today, which myself and Imran, we're happy to attend and proud to be a part of. And we have him in the studio tonight. So the number in the studio again, 0861904904, and the WhatsApp number 0609041056. So the concept of Hasanat as an alternative investment, you said something about you came out of corporate in 2017, and where was this idea kind of born from?
Well, Anwar, while working in corporate, I found, a lot of people, you went to them and they always said to you, what I can make in my own business, you can never replicate for me as a fund manager. And, having met with various different people, I realized that there was a big world out of the corporate space, out of the conventional space, what we referred to earlier as the financial economy. And to be honest, I left corporate with a big idea, but not really sure what I was going to be doing. I had worked closely with a few individuals who were in a similar space. And, I approached the guys and said that, what are your ideas? And they felt that private equity in the South African space was an untapped market, and in a market that investors were hungry for. So many times you get a professional person, or you get a person in a particular industry, has a business in that particular industry, but he or she sees that, I'd like to get involved in the property development, I'd like to get involved in an agricultural development or in a solar project or, vehicle leasing or truck leasing or any of those things. And, they see people making a lot of money, and, as a form of diversifying somebody's income, that was the plan. So, we would go to various different business owners, speak to them, look at the opportunities available, and, find opportunities to take to investors or to take to the general public. I think it was probably a week before, or my last week in corporate, when I met with Vian Smith, who's the CEO of Al Mabrur. It was actually for property development at that time. And to be honest, after that meeting with Vian, I've never looked back. The opportunities that, Al Mabrur have presented us with, in terms of their actual investments or people that we've met as a result of Al Mabrur investments, alhamdulillah, we've never looked back, and the opportunities are endless, provided you go out and find them. and ensure that you do your due diligence correctly and make sure that investors know what they're getting into.
Yes, I mean, I was happy to be at the Al Mabrur AGM, which took place just over 2 weeks ago in Dalmas, where the cattle feedlot scheme is, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I was surprised. There were over 300 people there, and there was a very professionally presented setup. And alhamdulillah, it seems like Al Mabrur certainly got a lot of new ideas up their sleeves.
Yeah, I don't think it's new ideas. It's something. It's been a work in progress for a number of years. Al Mabrur started out, or Al Mabrur as a business started out in 2011 as a property company, but the cattle fund which you're referring to, that's the AGM which recently took place, that started in 2014, and it's grown in leaps and bounds. To where they're at the point now where it's a full-on agricultural business. It's an end-to-end business. Within that farm, within that structure, within that fund, there's 5 different farms which are owned by the fund. There's approximately 10,000 breeding animals. So animals, where you would buy a cow and, let the cow start breeding and things like that. That has grown over a few years from a few hundred to 10,000 animals in the breeding space. Like I said, the farms on the feedlots, there's currently in excess of 30,000 animals there. And apart from the animals, I mean, the people involved. So, I mean, there's an entire team of people whose sole job is to go around the country, go to auctions, go to farmers to procure those animals. And remember, it's not just a case of going to a farm and saying, I want 800 cows or I want 800 calves. These guys are highly experienced. In many cases, they're 3rd or 4th generation cattle farmers. And, they go to these farmers and understand the process of the farms, how the farmer operates, the breeding process, what kind of medication these animals are given. They would do a full due diligence on a particular farm before purchasing animals from that farm.
And Suhail, you mentioned the cattle feedlots program starting in 2014. Any indication on the quantums or what's the value of this fund at the moment?
Well, so the current value of the fund is close on R1 billion at the moment.
Wow. So it's something to be reckoned with.
It's something to be reckoned with, and not just in the investment space, but also in the agriculture space.
Okay.
So Al Mabrur currently has, like I mentioned, in excess of 30,000 animals on a feedlot, and excluding, let's not call it Morgan beef, any feedlot with 30,000 animals, you would be in the top 5 in terms of size, in terms of number of animals in the country, in terms of beef producers.
Okay, so Al Mabrur is up there with the top of the lot.
It's definitely up there with the top of the lot. You're finding your big beef producers actually taking note that, asking who's Al Mabrur and where did they come from.
Okay. So once again, congratulations to Wian and his team and the Muslim community for backing this project and seeing it to the size that it is today.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, I believe Al Mabrur now in excess of 10,000 investors. Hassanat playing a vital role in that as well. I've been to the farm in Delmas where a lot of these animals are kept, and I've been there now, I think, on 4 occasions, 2 AGMs and 2 other visits. We were put on the back of a bakkie and driven around for like 20 to 25 minutes, and all we saw on either side was cattle and cattle and cattle and cattle in pens of between 140 and 180, I think, per pen. It was amazing. I mean, I haven't seen that many cattle in my life, but just in one spot, and this is somewhere out in Delmas, just about an hour from Johannesburg International Airport. But really fascinating experience. I mean, every time I've been there, I've learned a lot, and the way the animals are fed, and everything is a pure science the way it's done, and obviously you have to do it scientifically so that you cut back on costs and you save on costs.
Yeah, so, and with my corporate background, we used to go and have site visits to all your listed blue chip companies.
Yes.
And I can safely say that the operation that Morgan Beef has out in Delmas is up there with the best in terms of technology. So, just to run you through the process, from the time the guys go out and buy the animal. So what happens initially is that the animal is microchipped, the animal is weighed, and we put it on what we call a backgrounding farm, because you can't take an animal away from its mother and immediately put it on a feedlot. It doesn't perform well, so we put it, basically let the animal graze freely and introduce it to the concept of a feedlot. Throughout that process, the animal is monitored via a computer system, so the Al Mabrur team at the click of a button can tell you each of their 40 or 50,000 animals, what that animal weighed, how much it ate over the last week, and things like that. And within 2 or 3 weeks of that animal being in backgrounding, a decision is made to determine whether that animal would be suitable to go to a feedlot or not. Because remember, feedlot is not a cheap exercise. It's a relatively expensive exercise. So you want to make sure that an animal going onto a feedlot is going to pick up a lot of weight in a short space of time. So if, according to the various scientific calculations that all the vets and the technologists have put together, that animal is not going to perform well on a feedlot, that animal is then sold off. And if they feel that, yes, this animal is suitable for feedlot, is then transported to a feedlot. When it gets to the feedlot, once again, microchip tagged, vaccinated, and once again, that animal is monitored on an ongoing basis. In terms of, and I think, like yourself, everybody that's been to this feedlot has been blown away by the processes. So just in terms of the way the animals are fed. So firstly, animals are segregated, male or female, age, 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, how much the animal weighs, 200, 250 kilograms, whatever it is, all those animals are segregated. So you've got similar animals with a similar age sitting in one pen. Based on all of those, that information is put into a computer system, and it's basically an animal feed technologist. Like we have our dietitians and food technologists, you get the same for your animals. And based on this computer system, we then get exact amounts of the mix of the type of feed that this animal needs to get. So maize is always the primary ingredient, and then you use various other ingredients. But this is all mixed by a computer, by a robot. Then in terms of the feeding, so for example, if this particular batch of feed that was manufactured now, the computer system knows that it needs to go to, say for example, pen 32, pen 38, pen 46, etc., etc. As the truck drives around the feedlot with the feed, it scans a barcode on each particular pen, and the driver gets told, right, drop off 2 tons of feed in this pen, drop off 4 tons of feed in this pen. And on a daily basis, this is monitored. So they need to know, was all the feed finished 2 hours before it was meant to be finished? Is there leftover feed? So then they readjust the amount of feed dropped off. So everything is computer driven. And, the farm manager always says to us that, back in the day before computer systems, on a Friday afternoon, our animals never got food. Because the guys wanted to go home and they just chucked a feed in any pen that they want to get out of there. Now this is a completely computerized system. There's no way of human intervention changing this thing. So, it's basically a completely streamlined process.
Okay, you spoke about Morgan's Beef, the relationship between Morgan's Beef and Al Mabrur.
Okay, so Al Mabrur has entered into an agreement with Morgan Beef, who's one of the larger beef producers in South Africa. They supply a lot of your retail chains and things like that. And Al Mabrur has entered into an agreement with Morgan Beef where all Al Mabrur animals, when they get to feedlot stage, not backgrounding, when they get to feedlot stage, are left at Morgan Beef for feedlot. Morgan, they've got about 7,000 of their own animals, and they used to do feedlotting for a lot of smaller cattle owners. But it's just gone now. It's basically Al Mabrur and Morgan who are on the farm.
Okay, excellent. As an investor, let's get to the nuts and the bolts of that. Question is, how long is my money tied up for? What type of return can I expect?
All right, so the returns that we've been achieving over the last, a few years ago, going back 4 or 5 years, we were achieving excess of 17%. Various factors in the market have brought that down slightly, but we're still achieving between 13 and 15% per annum.
Between 13 and 15%.
Correct, yes.
Right. And tell me, as an investor, how often is the return paid out to me?
So your return is paid out every 4 months. So the cycle from the time we purchase till we sell is a 4-month cycle. So every 4 months, your investment is actually liquidated. At the end of the 4-month period, you then have the option to say whether you'd like to have your profits paid out to you or reinvested. But your capital needs to stay with us for 1 year.
Okay, so that your lock-in on your capital is 1 year, and what happens after 1 year?
After 1 year, the investor has the option to pull out all his or her capital or reinvest. If the investor chooses to reinvest, you then locked in for a 4-month period at a time.
So each 4 months, when your profits are due to you, you can then make a decision of taking your capital as well.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so there's no long-term lock-in per se.
No long-term lock-in.
Okay.
And Suhail, I was going through some of the Al Mabrur brochures and had a look at their website. There's Wagyu Breeding as well, a very tasty type of beef. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think what Anwar forgot to mention was that he ate some Wagyu fresh off the farm when he went to the AGM.
Yeah, and it's tasty at that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's more of a breeding program. That's more of a long-term investment.
Also falling into the alternate investment space.
Also falling into the alternate investment space. But there, because it's breeding, you need to stay invested for 5 years.
Okay.
So suitable to a certain segment of your investor market.
All right, a bit more niche.
That's correct.
Well, generally at the moment, returns on investments are pretty low, as in when one is putting money into the Islamic banks on savings, and generally because the interest rates of the country are low. I know we've had a recent increase, but generally interest rates are low. So, I mean, 13 to 15% return seems very high relative to what others are offering in terms of putting money into an Islamic bank, for example.
Yeah, I know that comes back to your real economy versus financial economy.
Right.
I mean, if you were to go and speak to a farmer and say to him that let's go and buy some cows and keep them for a few months and sell them, I'll give you an annual return of 13 to 15%. That farmer would laugh at you.
Right.
Because, he would say to you that if I buy my own animals, keep them and hold them, I can achieve a lot more. Obviously, the farmer knows exactly what he's doing and he's got the expertise. So for that farmer, it's fine. I mean, a lot of people in their businesses, you would know as a businessman, if you got anything under 15% returns, you'd reconsider if you're in the right business or not.
Sure, for all the effort that you put in.
For all the effort that you're putting in. So, yeah, I mean, it's real world economy, it's real trading. We're actually trading in animals. That's what we're doing.
Right.
And when we come to trade, to have a 13 to 15% profit margin for the year, it's quite common. I would actually say it's on the low end when we come into trading.
Okay, so and that 13 to 15% has obviously been achieved, and the investors are getting paid out their returns on a consistent basis.
On a consistent basis, yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And so I mean a great opportunity there, and in that this thing. As Hassanat, are you looking at other investments at the moment in the alternative space?
Yeah, so I think we're running out of time, so I'll just go very quickly. I mean, we got involved in sheep farming,
right?
A few months back. We've partnered with a few logistics companies where we're doing truck leasing, where we're involved in the financing of diesel purchases.
Okay.
There is numerous other investments, and one exciting project we're currently looking at is an investment into cannabis farming, which has become a big thing both in South Africa and internationally.
Yeah, I see today there's a South African cannabis company that listed on the German stock exchange. So definitely a buzzword in the industry at the moment.
Yes, it definitely is a buzzword, but investors once again need to be cautious.
Are you guys playing on the theme of the word buzz here, or what?
You're the only guy that picked it up. All right. So, I mean, once again, Imran, you need to make sure that you partner with the right people. Because, I mean, we know a lot of university students who have their own cannabis plantations in their flats. But, once again, so we've partnered with a company called Medigrow, or we in the process of partnering with them and doing due diligence on them. And Medigrow has been in Lesotho doing this for over 5 years. They've already got off-takes agreement with European customers.
Okay.
So, we always make sure that we partner with a specialist in that particular field.
Makes complete sense.
Okay, so here we're going to conclude the program. I see there's one WhatsApp message that's come through. I think it takes you back to your old position, but I'm going to ask it. It says, Assalamu alaikum, my beloved brothers, good business show. Please advise me. I hold shares in First Rand and RMI. Must I hold on the shares or sell? This is from a brother Abdul Khalik. So I know you haven't done any research into shares recently, but if the brother wants some advice on First Rand and RMI, what would you tell him?
Okay, so firstly, I've never actually looked at those shares. So I'm not going to comment on the actual share and whether it's a good investment or not. But what I would strongly request from you as my brother in Islam is that we know that these are companies that are involved in riba. Riba is their primary business. And we know that, that the person involved in riba has waged war against Allah Ta'ala. So as my brother in Islam, for getting the money and everything else, I'm requesting that you immediately sell these shares and then, consult with ulama and speak to them and determine which other shares or which other investments you could go in. But please sell those shares as soon as you can.
Absolutely. Sound advice there. Suhail, some details in terms of who to contact if somebody wants more information on Hasanat or Al Mabrur. I know locally, they can contact myself or Imran as well. But you want to give us some numbers?
Yeah, so the nice thing of Hasanat is that we've got brokers around the country. So wherever you are, we've probably got a broker close to you. The best place to go would be to our website where you'd find whatever information you need. That's www.hasanat. So that's hasanat.co.za. You can go onto our website and all our contact details are there. All our investment opportunities are there. You can view that at your leisure. You can drop us an email on info@hasanat.co.za. Or, there is lots of brokers around the country. So, contact one of your financial advisors and they should be able to put you in touch.
Imran, I'm sure you can assist people as well. So just want to give them your details.
You can drop me an email at imoolla, IMOOLLA at fwdtrading.co.za, or you can contact me via phone call or WhatsApp on 081 599 1695.
So, some parting words from you in terms of the way forward.
Okay, so, like I've said before, there's lots of opportunities out there. Investors should look at these opportunities. Don't stick. I'm not saying don't look at your unit trust and things like that, but that's not the be-all and end-all of investments. There's lots of opportunities out there. And remember, by participating in the real economy, we've seen it with Al Mabrur, where hundreds of jobs have been created as a result of investment, these agricultural investments, our property investments and things like that. So apart from actually making money or investment returns for yourself, a lot of times investing into these alternate real world investments actually creates jobs within our country. And we all know, that's one of our biggest issues in South Africa is unemployment. So you'll be making some good returns for yourself, but also contributing to the livelihood of many South Africans.
And I'd be failing if I didn't, but we should have touched on this earlier, but said, what are the risks and what are the involved in say, Al Mabrur investment?
Yeah, how much time do we have left?
Just 2 minutes.
All right. So remember, with any investment, there's going to be risks. The partners that we've got are people that are well experienced, like I mentioned, generations in farming. We've put as many measures into place in terms of vaccinating animals, partnering with the right people, buying at the right price, having the right feed, and things like that.
But your return can't be guaranteed.
We can't guarantee a return, because remember, you buying and selling animals. I must reiterate that in the 7.5 years that this fund has been in existence, we've never had a loss in any single 4-month period. But as I say to any investors, you may well be the first person to make a loss. So always bear in mind that losses are a normal part of business.
Alhamdulillah. So it's also always the risk-return trade-off, which is something that we learned in our very early days at university. So inshallah. But alhamdulillah, we wish the Al Mabrur team and the Hasana team all the success in the future. Inshallah, Allah takes you from strength to strength, and inshallah we'll get you back in the studio and in one of your future visits to Durban.
Ameen. Jazakallah khairan for having me.
Imran, some parting words from you?
I think Suhail was very prudent in what he said. You got to do your due diligence, be it your conventional investments or alternate investments. The Sharia compliance is a big part of it, as well as what does the underlying investment offer. So be cognizant of that. Ask questions, because at the end of the day, you're investing your hard-earned money. So don't be shy. Ask the right questions, and when you're comfortable, then invest in something.
Absolutely. Well said there. I believe the minimum investment is 25,000 Rand. So if somebody's got anything from 25,000 Rand upward, there's an alternative investment that one can look at. The Hasana team. And yes, Alhamdulillah, been around since 2014 and doing exceptionally well. We wish them well for that. Jazakumullah khair. And with that, inshallah, we take leave and we see you again for another exciting program next week. So it's wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.